Hail Internet, it's Matt here for the Dork Lords. If you're new to the channel, welcome. We talk about all manner of dorkly things here, so whether it's sci-fi, fantasy, superheroes, we probably have a playlist about it. Feel free to check us out. Today is another in our Dork Lord of the Rings segments. And before we get on to today's topic, there are a few Tolkien tidbits of note. First, Amazon confirmed several castings for their Lord of the Rings show. Some were unofficially announced a long time ago, and frankly, the announcement wasn't particularly thrilling, mainly because they didn't announce what characters the actors are actually playing. But I think it's notable because this is the first tweet from the Amazon LOTR Twitter account since June, when they paid homage to Sir Ian Holm's passing. So I think this might be an indicator that we're going to get some real news about the show in the near future. Second, commenter Denny Holsey gave me the heads up that there's a new book of previously unpublished Tolkien essays on the horizon. The Nature of Middle-earth is going to hit the shelves in June, and I'm guessing that many topics for this channel will be revealed. And finally, commenter Ani68 mentioned that Tolkien's house is up for sale, and there's a crowdfunding initiative to buy the house to turn it into a museum. Folks like Ian McKellen and Martin Freeman have signed on. So if you'd like to help with a worthy cause, the crowdfunding initiative is called Project Northmore. And now, on to today's topic. Okay, there are a handful of moments throughout the trilogy when, as Galadriel puts it, the quest stands upon the edge of a knife, when disaster is seconds away and the fate of Middle-earth is up for grabs. Some of the more notable moments might be Weathertop, the Balrog, Shelob, for instance. But there's another knife-edge moment that often gets overlooked. It comes after Boromir tries to take the ring, Frodo puts it on, and he finds himself on Amon Hen, the Hill of Sight. A version of this scene does show up in the Fellowship of the Ring movie, but I think its importance is lost a little bit in the cool fighting scenes that follow. So what is Amon Hen? We get a brief description of it from Aragorn as the Fellowship approaches the region. This is very near the Argonath, the two giant statues lining the river Anduin. The sun, already long fallen from the noon, was shining in a windy sky. The pent waters spread out into a long oval lake, fenced by steep gray hills whose sides were clad with trees, but their heads were bare, cold gleaming in the sunlight. At the far southern end rose 3 peaks. The midmost stood somewhat forward from the others and sundered from them, an island in the waters, about which the flowing river flung pale shimmering arms. Distant but deep, there came up on the wind a roaring sound like the roll of thunder heard far away. "Behold, Tol Brandir," said Aragorn, pointing south to the tall peak. "Upon the left stands Amon Law, and upon the right is Amon Hen, the hills of hearing and of sight. In the days of the great kings, there were high seats upon them, and watch was kept there. But it is said that no foot of man or beast has ever been set upon Tol Brandir. Ere the shade of night falls, we shall come to them. I hear the endless voice of Rauros calling." So we've got 3 peaks in a row. The middle peak, surrounded by the river, is Tol Brandir, Isle of the Great Steeples. And Aragorn says that no man or beast has ever set foot there. So it's a very sacred place. And on either side of Tol Brandir you have Amon Hen, the Hill of Sight, and Amon Law, the Hill of Hearing. And Aragorn says that seats were placed upon these hills and a watch kept in the days of the great kings. They are the seat of seeing and the seat of hearing. Now, we're not 100% sure what kings Aragorn is referring to, but given that these hills are near Gondor's border and they're in close proximity to the Argonath, I think they were built by the same individual who commissioned the Argonath, Romendasil II, the 19th king of Gondor, and that's about 1700 years before the War of the Ring. And now the fellowship has paddled up to the shore near Amon Hen, and Frodo has taken a walk to think things through. The rest of the fellowship, minus Boromir, is also debating what the next move should be. The others remained long by the riverside. Every now and again they made efforts to speak of other things, of their long road and many adventures. They questioned Aragorn concerning the realm of Gondor and its ancient history, and the remnants of its great works that could still be seen in the strange borderland of the Emyn Muil, the Stone Kings, and the seats of Law and Hen, and the great stair beside the falls of Rauros. But always their thoughts and words strayed back to Frodo and the ring. What would Frodo choose to do? Why was he hesitating? "He is debating which course is the most desperate, I think," said Aragorn. "And well he may. It is now more hopeless than ever for the company to go east, since we have been tracked by Gollum, and must fear that the secret of our journey is already betrayed." So we hear a reference to the Stone Kings, the Argonath, and the seats of Law and Hen. And again, they're talked about as architecture of the same period, so I think they were built around the same time. The oddity, as we're about to see, is that these seats seem to have a magical component. Now, Frodo has just escaped Boromir, and he sits upon the seat of seeing while wearing the ring, which is a bad idea, as it turns out. Now, this is a longer quote, but it really is the crux of this topic. "Soon he came out alone on the summit of Amon Hen and halted, gasping for breath. He saw as through a mist a wide flat circle paved with mighty flags, and surrounded with a crumbling battlement, and in the middle, set upon 4 carven pillars, was a high seat, reached by a stair of many steps. Up he went and sat upon the ancient chair, feeling like a lost child that had clambered upon the throne of mountain kings. At first, he could see little. He seemed to be in a world of mist in which there were only shadows. The ring was upon him. Then, here and there, the mist gave way, and he saw many visions, small and clear as if they were under his eyes upon a table, and yet remote. There was no sound, only bright living images. The world seemed to have shrunk and fallen silent. He was sitting upon the seat of seeing on Amon Hen, the hill of the eye of the men of Númenor. Eastward he looked into wide uncharted lands, nameless plains and forests unexplored. Northward he looked, and the great river lay like a ribbon beneath him, and the misty mountains stood small and hard as broken teeth. Westward he looked, and saw the broad pastures of Rohan, and Orthanc, the pinnacle of Isengard, like a black spike. Southward he looked, and below his very feet the great river curled like a toppled wave, and plunged over the falls of Rauros into a foaming pit. And Ethir Anduin he saw, the mighty delta of the river, and myriads of seabirds whirling like a white dust in the sun, and beneath them a green and silver sea rippling in endless lines. But everywhere he looked, he saw the signs of war. The misty mountains were crawling like anthills. Orcs were issuing out of 1,000 holes. Under the boughs of Mirkwood there was deadly strife of elves and men and fell beasts. The land of the Beornings was aflame. A cloud was over Moria. Smoke rose on the borders of Lorien. Horsemen were galloping on the grass of Rohan. Wolves poured from Isengard. From the havens of Harad, ships of war put out to sea, and out of the east men were moving endlessly, swordsmen, spearmen, bowmen upon horses, chariots of chieftains, and laden wains. All the power of the Dark Lord was in motion. Then, turning south again, he beheld Minas Tirith. Far away it seemed, and beautiful, white-walled, many towers, proud and fair upon its mountain seat. Its battlements glittered with steel, and its turrets were bright with many banners. Hope leaped in his heart. But against Minas Tirith was set another fortress, greater and more strong. Thither, eastward, unwilling his eye was drawn. It passed the ruined bridges of Osgiliath, the grinning gates of Minas Morgul and the haunted mountains, and it looked upon Gorgoroth, the valley of terror in the land of Mordor. Darkness lay there under the sun. Fire glowed amid the smoke. Mount Doom was burning, and a great reek rising. Then at last his gaze was held. Wall upon wall, battlement upon battlement, black, immeasurably strong, mountain of iron, gate of steel, tower of adamant, he saw it. Barad-dûr, fortress of Sauron. All hope left him, and suddenly he felt the eye. There was an eye in the dark tower that did not sleep. He knew that it had become aware of his gaze. A fierce, eager will was there. It leaped towards him, almost like a finger he felt it, searching for him. Very soon it would nail him down, know just exactly where he was. Amon Law it touched. It glanced upon Tol Brandir. He threw himself from the seat, crouching, covering his head with his grey hood. He heard himself crying out, "Never! Never!" Or was it, "Verily I come to you"? He could not tell. Then, as a flash from some other point of power, there came to his mind another thought. Take it off! Take it off! Fool, take it off! Take off the ring! The two powers strove in him. For a moment, perfectly balanced between their piercing points, he writhed, tormented. Suddenly, he was aware of himself again. Frodo, neither the voice nor the eye, free to choose, and with one remaining instant in which to do so, he took the ring off his finger. He was kneeling in clear sunlight before the high seat. A black shadow seemed to pass like an arm above him. It missed Amon Hen and groped out west and faded. Then all the sky was clean and blue, and birds sang in every tree. Frodo rose to his feet. A great weariness was on him, but his will was firm and his heart lighter. He spoke aloud to himself. "I will do now what I must," he said. "This at least is plain. The evil of the ring is already at work, even in the company, and the ring must leave them before it does more harm. I will go alone." Again, that was a longer quote, but it's so dramatic. Here we have Frodo sitting upon the seat of seeing on Amon Hen, the hill of the eye of the men of Númenor, and he almost falls under the gaze of the eye of Sauron. The two eyes almost meet. And think of the minute details that Frodo is witnessing in his vision. He can see bowmen on horses in the lands of the Easterlings. Then he turns his vision to Mount Doom and Barad-dûr. Big mistake. Much like a Palantir, if you can see them, they can probably see you. And there's a very interesting line. He heard himself crying out, "Never, never." Or was it, "Verily I come to you"? That suggests that he's seeing alternate outcomes of this impending meeting. There's a future in which he relents, and that's what's at stake. If Sauron finds him in this moment, he can use his will to control Frodo and take the ring. He'd probably send a Black Rider to take it, and he certainly wouldn't trust orcs or Saruman to come do the job. But at the last second, he hears a voice in his head saying, "Fool, take it off! Take off the ring!" And it's that voice that clears his mind and allows him to choose to remove the ring, saving himself and Middle-earth. We'll come back to that voice in a second, because we do find out more about this moment and how perilous it was later in the story. But for now, Aragorn is running up Amon Hen, searching for Frodo, and we get another revealing passage about the Seat of Seeing. Aragorn sprang swiftly away and went in pursuit of Sam. Just as he reached the little lawn among the rowans, he overtook him, toiling uphill, panting and calling, "Frodo!" "Come with me, Sam," he said. "None of us should be alone. There is mischief about. I feel it. I'm going to the top, to the seat of Amon Hen, to see what may be seen. And look, it is as my heart guessed. Frodo went this way. Follow me, and keep your eyes open." Aragorn sped on up the hill. Every now and again he bent to the ground. Hobbits go light, and their footprints are not easy, even for a ranger to read. But not far from the top, a spring crossed the path, and in the wet earth he saw what he was seeking. I read the signs aright, he said to himself. Frodo ran to the hilltop. I wonder what he saw there. But he returned by the same way and went down the hill again. Aragorn hesitated. He desired to go to the high seat himself, hoping to see there something that would guide him in his perplexities. But time was pressing. Suddenly, he leaped forward and ran to the summit, across the great flagstones and up the steps. Then, sitting in the high seat, he looked out. But the sun seemed darkened, and the world dim and remote. He turned from the north, back again to the north, and saw nothing save the distant hills, unless it were that far away he could see again a great bird like an eagle, high in the air, descending slowly in wide circles down towards the earth. What I find interesting about this is that Aragorn unsuccessfully attempts to use the power of the seat. It's notable that he's unsuccessful, but it's also notable that he knows to try. He sits in that seat expecting to see something useful. So it has a magical reputation. But the fact that the rightful king of Gondor can't see from this seat is odd. I think Frodo's experience is augmented by the wearing of the ring, but I'd assume that Aragorn could use the seat's powers to some extent as well. Perhaps his vision was clouded by this recent struggle between Sauron and the force that told Frodo to take off the ring. And the clue to that is in the only thing that Aragorn sees. A great bird like an eagle high in the air. Flash forward to a few days later. Aragorn, Gimli, and Legolas meet up with Gandalf the White in Fangorn Forest. Note Legolas's first comment in this quote. "The eagle," said Legolas. "I have seen an eagle high and far off. The last time was 4 days ago, above the Emon Wheel." "Yes," said Gandalf. "That was Gwaihir the Windlord who rescued me from Orthanc. I sent him before me to watch the river and gather tidings. His sight is keen, but he cannot see all that passes under hill and tree. Some things he has seen, and others I have seen myself. The ring now has passed beyond my help, or the help of any of the company that set out from Rivendell. Very nearly it was revealed to the enemy, but it escaped. I had some part in that, for I sat in a high place, and I strove with the dark tower, and the shadow passed. Then I was weary, very weary, and I walked long in dark thought." "Then you know about Frodo," said Gimli. "How do things go with him?" "I cannot say. He was saved from a great peril, but many lie before him still. He resolved to go alone to Mordor, and he set out. That is all I can say." So it was Gandalf who saved Frodo and Middle-earth by reaching out from afar and telling him to take off the ring. Of all of Gandalf's heroic acts, this is one of the most crucial. He says that he sat in a high place. At first, I thought he must be referring to Durin's Tower, on the mountaintop where he fought the Balrog. But no, the dates don't line up. We get another clue about the event in a short quote from Gandalf in which he mentions seeing Treebeard. "I saw him 4 days ago striding among the trees, and I think he saw me, for he paused. But I did not speak, for I was heavy with thought, and weary after my struggle with the Eye of Mordor. And he did not speak either, nor call my name." So, a weary Gandalf, fresh off dueling with Sauron from a high place, sees Treebeard striding among the trees. That suggests Gandalf was in Fangorn when he projected his consciousness to save Frodo. And leave it to Reddit for some quality nerds to confirm this. Ibid11962 posted a photo from the Tolkien exhibition in Oxford, England. I'll put it up here. It's Tolkien's handwritten notes from the timeline of the breaking of the Fellowship. And the note reads, "Gandalf, on a hill in Fangorn, wrestles in thought with the Eye of Mordor and saves Frodo from yielding." That's awesome. We get confirmation from Tolkien himself how this moment went down and how important this moment is. Gandalf saves Frodo from yielding. But where is this high place in Fangorn Forest? A clue to that can be found in a quote from Treebeard to Merry and Pippin. I can see and hear and smell and feel a great deal from this la rumba commander linda burume. Excuse me, that is a part of my name for it. I do not know what the word is in outside languages. You know, the thing we are on, where I stand and look out on fine mornings and think about the sun and the grass beyond the wood and the horses and the clouds and the unfolding of the world. What is going on? What is Gandalf up to? And these... He made a deep rumbling noise like a discord on a great organ. These orcs and young Saruman down at Isengard. I like news, but not too quick now. But there, the sun is going in. Let us leave this... Did you say what you call it? Hill? Suggested Pippin. Shelf? Step? Suggested Merry. Treebeard repeated the words thoughtfully. Hill. Yes, that was it. But it is a hasty word for a thing that has stood here ever since this part of the world was shaped. Never mind. Let us leave it and go. Voila! Treebeard's Hill. He goes atop it to see the unfolding of the world. It's his version of Amon Hen. And if Gandalf passed him while walking away from his ordeal, it makes sense that Treebeard would be walking up his hill. So, I think Gandalf battled Sauron from atop Treebeard's Hill in Fangorn Forest. So I think that the one question that remains is, how are these seats of seeing and hearing magical? They appear to be built by Gondor, hence Númenórean descendants. But they aren't towers housing Palantiri like Amansul on Weathertop or Minas Ithil. And other items granting clairvoyance, such as the Mirror of Galadriel, weren't crafted by mortal hands. We're not given a solid answer of how these artifacts were endowed with magical power. But I think the key could lie in the sacred nature of this place. Remember how Tol Brandir, the hill between Amon Hen and Amon Law, has never been tread upon, showing the respect and reverence that Gondor held for this place. I think there may be a divine power flowing through these seats. We get a reference to this power, and I think a clue as to why these seats were built on these hilltops in this quote from the Silmarillion. With Manve dwells Varda, Lady of the Stars, who knows all the regions of Ea. Manve and Varda are seldom parted, and they remain in Valinor. Their halls are above the everlasting snow, upon the uttermost tower of Tanaquetil, tallest of all the mountains upon earth. When Manve there ascends his throne and looks forth, if Varda is beside him, he sees further than all other eyes, through mist and through darkness and over the leagues of the sea. And if Manve is with her, Varda hears more clearly than all other ears the sound of voices that cry from east to west, from the hills and the valleys, and from the dark places that Melkor has made upon earth. Of all the great ones who dwell in this world, the elves hold Varda most in reverence and love. Elbereth they name her, and they call upon her name out of the shadows of Middle-earth, and uplift it in song at the rising of the stars. So I think the seats of seeing and hearing are homages to Manve and Arda's thrones. As the quote says, the elves revered Varda, and the faithful among the Númenóreans, who became the kings of Gondor, did the same. Also note that Manve sent Gandalf to Middle-earth to help counter Sauron, and the great eagles, such as Gwahir, are Manve's messengers. So,
I think the inclusion of Gandalf and Gwahir in the events on Amon Hen is intentional.
So perhaps, since these were built to honor Manve and Varda, those Valar imbued the seats with the powers of seeing and hearing. Possibly. So there you go. Amon Hen and the Seat of Seeing. One of those knife-edge moments that often gets overlooked. Pun intended. If you've got a topic that you'd like me to discuss, please feel free to put it in the comments. I'd love to do a video about a topic of your choosing. Thanks so much, everybody, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye!